everybody, it's Mandy from Chapel Forge. So obviously this is not my typical morning. Zad is escorting me into town. So I'm taking a class with the chamber on Canva, which will be fun. I am using Canva all the time, so it was worth getting up early to go to. Zad made me a breakfast sandwich on our yummy sourdough bread that I made, the bowl with some, there was a venison hot dog left from last night's haphazard dinner. Yeah, one of the ones that the kids didn't massacre. So with a little cheese and an egg, made me like half a sandwich, which is great because it's pretty early. I mean, early for us anyway. So we got coffee. Zad's gonna take soap and fire pokers and return my silly KitchenAid. Drop that stuff off while we're in town. All right, I'm home from my Canva class. It was great. I learned a lot of things. My dough has doubled, which is so exciting. All right, so next stage is I'm gonna split these. I'm gonna do a shaping, do a bench rest, and then I'll come back in like 10 or 15 minutes, maybe even like 30 minutes, and come back and do a final shaping, get them in their baskets, get them in the fridge. So last time I only proofed them in the fridge for like maybe 4 hours, and I was reading and learning that the longer you cold proof it, which seemed so counterintuitive to me because I felt like it should develop a lot of its flavor on the counter, which I'm sure it develops flavor on the counter, of course. But if you leave it in the fridge for like a week, it can develop like even more flavor. Now, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to probably bake them tonight. But I just think that's fascinating. So you can leave your ready to go dough in the fridge for like a couple weeks and still pull it out and bake it, which I just think is fascinating. All right, so yesterday I talked about how we were clarifying this bacon grease because we just had a ton and Zad felt like it just had a lot of pieces in it. So what I did was I heated this up in the Dutch oven. When it was all melted, I poured like probably a quart of water in there. So the idea is that all the junk floats in the bottom in the water, and then I can scoop off the nice clean grease and put in our bucket, container, crock, vessel, there you go, and let it live on the counter. So we're kind of doing informal breakfast this morning. I had mentioned Zad made him and I a breakfast sandwich because we went and I did that class early this morning. Bud cooked up some bacon, so everybody's just kind of grazing on a plate of bacon. There's bagels and muffins and whatever, so we're kind of just doing that. Zad's gonna be working on KitchenAid mixers today. Bud has beeswax wraps to make. We're testing a new beeswax wrap that so I found that when I'm doing things like bagels or rolls or things that need to rise that are like small that you do on like a cookie sheet on parchment or whatever, I don't like using plastic wrap if I don't have to. It's just gross, it's weird, it's hard to work with. So Bud and I are making a beeswax wrap that'll go over a cookie sheet. So I'll keep you posted on how that goes. Currently, he makes 2 sizes of beeswax wrap, a 10 by 10, which fits like most bowls or whatever, like if you're rising some bread or something. And then he makes one that goes on a 9 by 13, and I think it's like 11 by 15. So we're gonna test this cookie sheet one. So he's gonna be working on that today. I have some bookkeeping and things to do. This is way more satisfying than I expected it to be. All right, so I've mentioned that one of the things that we are likely going to run out of is cheese. We already ran out of shredded cheese, which we right now just buy in a bag. Like the big 5-pound bags at the Amish store because we don't have a dairy cow yet. It's on the list, maybe this year, I'm hoping. Okay, so what we do also get is big blocks of cheese at Blessings of Hope, which I've talked about them a million times. I'll link it in the description. If you're in Pennsylvania, near Lancaster County, it's a great resource. You can buy food for 60 cents a pound. However, they are really great until we start pulling them out, putting back in the bag, pulling it out, putting back in the bag, Then the bacteria gets on there, and then this happens. So I don't want to get rid of this whole thing or just throw it all to the chickens. So I'm gonna cut off the bad parts. We're gonna put it in a different container. All right, so there was just the teeniest amount of mold on that. So I'm feeding it to my chickens. Whether you're comfortable doing that or not is 100% up to you. And then this block right here, I'm gonna put in more of a sealed container than that bag was, and we'll just try to use that up here in the next few days. Okay, I've mentioned before that I'm really trying to work on this ginger bug situation. My first ginger bug did amazing. I had bubbles, it was great, it was so happy. The second one didn't do as well, and I'm wondering if the difference is, the first time I did the ginger bug, I grated it, and this time I just chopped it. Chopped didn't seem to get quite as excited, so I dumped that. It wasn't bad, it didn't mold, like it had some commies, it didn't mold, so I just fed that to the chickens, and we're gonna start over on the ginger bug. bug. I'm gonna run out of ginger before the end of the pantry challenge anyway, so no biggie. This is the blueberry ginger soda that we made. Obviously it needs shooken up a little bit. And we'll throw that in the fridge. That'll be yummy. And then of course the daily task, I need to pull off some discard and refeed this. Bud really wants focaccia again, which is cracking me up. He comes down this morning and says, "Is all that fancy bread gone?" And I'm like, "Yeah, buddy, it is." So I think I'm gonna feed this and we'll start another focaccia. Something that I changed from when I started doing sourdough is I would just continuously feed this. And I'm not saying that's the wrong way to do it. But Kate at Venison for Dinner had mentioned that you can't feed your starter less than the starter that's in here. So while it looks like this is filled up really high, it's totally not. There's like just a tiny amount in there, like maybe half an inch's worth. Oh my gosh, and it smells so good. Anyway, so what I've been doing every day is pouring off whatever I need to pour off to get about yay much in there. And then I feed it, and it's been a lot happier. My breads have been a lot better. So that process has really worked really well for me. Something else we need to do is pull the discard out of the freeze dryer. So this finished sometime in the night. I've mentioned this before, I always have extra dry time set on my machine. So there's always 12 hours of extra dry time. That way, if it finishes in the middle of the night, it'll run for 12 more hours, because then I'm not sitting here having to babysit it. And my lemon peels are in there with a little bit of honey, so I'm anxious to see how well they freeze dry. So if you've noticed, our fridge in the kitchen died, which means this extra fridge is packed. Apples, clementines, milk. There's dinner, which was leftover ham stew from the other night. 2 baskets of bread proofing. There's sourdough sprinkled in here, elderberry on the door, all kinds of goodies. And this is not related to the freeze dryer necessarily, but I always keep this thermometer in here. It's linked to my phone so that like if it would get way high or way low, like an alarm goes off and all that kind of thing, which frankly I don't really pay attention to that much because I'm in here so often. But it's saying 42 in here, which is kind of wild. I was a little nervous because this is like a block. So this pantry was part of the garage. We walled it off and then made this the extended pantry. So like this wall over here is blocked. So like the living room's on the other side over there. That goes to the outside, and then this is the garage wall, and then like here's the mudroom where the freeze dryer is and our offices and whatever. And it was pretty chilly when I walked in here yesterday. So like a lot of the country right now, it's cold. I mean, with the wind chill, sometimes we're in the negatives, at least in the single digits or the teens. It's been cold. So 42 is fine. I'm not uncomfortable with that. And like I've been keeping an eye on things in here. Nothing is like frozen or cracked, or you know, everything is very much still very liquidy, so I'm not worried about it. But these are the things that you worry about on your first year on your homestead, because you don't know what's gonna freeze or be too hot or any of those things yet. All right, so the discard looks amazing, exactly what I would have expected, and it's super dry. This pretty much did what I expected, I think, because of the honey. Like you can see how they're still kind of gummy. So this isn't like terrible. It'll be fine. So I think we're just gonna put those peels in like a container on the counter, and we'll use them in tea or something like that. They're not quite dry enough that I'm comfortable putting them in soap. Definitely not comfortable putting them in long-term storage. All right, so I got 2 Mylar bags here. I have a little one for my sister. I just stepped in a wet spot in my socks. I have a small one here for my sister-in-law to give her a little discard to have on hand, or starter, and then a bigger one here that I'll throw in our long-term storage. As you can see, I've used these bags before. I always talk about how you can reuse your bags. Just wash them up and let them dry, and then you can just keep cutting them down until there's nothing left. They're expensive, so you don't need to waste them. So this is kind of wild. You can see how active even my discard was. That's wild. It looks like drywall. Okay, so in my pantry tour, I showed that these are our long-term storage bins, something that I really want to try to keep building up. I just, you know, it's a slow process. So I am going to throw these in one of the bins that has some space in it and write sourdough starter on it, since obviously none of them have that in there because I only just started sourdough and this is the first time I've done this. So we're going to get that popped in there. I'm really excited to have this on hand. So like I said, I've been trying to do like a small decluttering project, like at least a few days a week. Something I'm going to do really quick that should not take me more than maybe 10 or 15 minutes is I'm going to move our glass and Ziploc stuff into the spice cabinet and put the spices over here. This makes the most sense, we thought, because it's right next to the stove, but it's like super awkward because this range hood is here and like you can't ever find anything. And like the glass stuff, obviously it's not 100 little bottles. So until we get a better spice cabinet setup, this will work really well. You'll have to walk across the kitchen, but you'll get a few more extra steps in and you'll actually be able to find things. So I'm gonna weed through the spice cabinet, see if anything's just like super old or whatever. That can go to the chickens, and then get the glass swapped. I don't think there's anything in our storage container cabinet that's probably going to go, because we swapped years ago all over to glass. We don't really do anything in plastic. We have one plastic container that Matt brought, which is actually currently storing bagels, for the simple fact that I don't have a glass container big enough to store the bagels in. Other than that, we pretty much 99% of everything gets stored in glass. So I am going to work through that project quick and then get back to bookkeeping. So Bud made us a quick yogurt parfait. I've talked many times about how I make a gallon of yogurt, usually every week, from our raw milk that we get. And it makes for a quick snack if we need one. Zad has saw class tonight, so we might bust out the ham soup that we had left from the other day. I'm sure Zad will eat some when he gets back, but that's gonna be super late, like 11. So having something like this on hand is just the best. And in case you're new to yogurt or new to us or whatever, you can make yogurt for the cost of a gallon of milk. So we pay $5 for milk, and then I just take a cup from the previous batch as my starter. And so we literally make a gallon of yogurt for $5. So as a snack goes, it's pretty darn cheap to have yogurt. You get some good protein, you get all the good nutrients of that. It's filling. It's one of our favorites. All right, so this is our new spice cabinet. Isn't that lovely? It's so much nicer. So I put the stuff up top that's like some medicinal herbs, things that Zad wouldn't go for to cook with typically. Just like overflow bags of things, root beer extract, stuff that he wouldn't go for. And then, or typically wouldn't. These two shelves would be things that he would cook with. So they should be like easy to reach, easy to get. He'll have to pull out a few things to get the things sometimes, but it's not the disaster that was over there. And then in this cabinet, we need to go restock our Ziplocs. I know there's more in the pantry, but anyway, Ziplocs up here, a couple little extra storage containers here. I found my other bread knife, the one for scoring. What is it called? Whatever the fancy knife's called that you score your sourdough bowls with. I found it. Of course, I had bought another one because I couldn't find it. Now I have two. And then I had this nice basket that a friend gave me some of those medicinal herbs in. So that's holding the lids to our glass containers. A lot of our glass containers are currently occupied with leftovers or things that we need to take care of. So this is so much better. I'm not like taking on big projects like the garage or the shop, or, you know, those are mostly Zad's spaces. I'll help him with the garage, but the shop's pretty much his. But I'm just trying to tackle like a couple cabinets or like a small room or whatever. And, you know, so far I filled a half a bag today. I have probably 10 or 12 bags here that need to go to the thrift store, and I've sent out a few bags of trash already. So rock on. So Bud is reheating some of this ham, green bean, potato mixture that Zad made on the coal stove the other day. And it's got this fat cap. That's so good. Put it in with your soup when you reheat it. All right, so I'm on my second set of stretch and folds and it's resting. These came out okay. My dough was a little bit sticky. I think the problem is that I should have known better. I put it on the second shelf on my fermentation rack over the stove, and I really should have put it like on the top and over to the side so it got the warmth but not like as much direct heat. It's fine. I mean, they still have some spring. It's not like they didn't rise at all. They'll definitely be edible. I'm not gonna freeze these. I did make these with the intention of freezing them to see what we thought about when we pulled them out of the freezer, but we'll just eat these. It'll be fine. So not a total fail. I mean, I've had way worse ones on this journey. So I think that's everything for today. Zad, I think this is his last weeknight of saw class, which is cool. We always feel a little bit out of our routine when like everyone's not here for dinner, and Bud and I tend to just like heat up leftovers or like have yogurt or like a bagel or something. Like we don't typically sit at the table and like all that kind of stuff. So it'll be nice to have Zad back during the week. So I hope, as every other day during this pantry challenge, I hope that you were inspired. If you have any questions about anything we did, certainly let me know. See you guys next time.